FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
WESN.
Hello everybody, this is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to the program here on WESN. We have an exciting edition of the program this morning. We'll be talking in the second set of discussions with someone, Mr. David Muhammad. You know him. He's the Muslim gentleman who has a lot to say about the development and underdevelopment in some respects, both physically and in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll get to him in the second part of the program, but as we speak, we're talking with Mr. Anthony Hernandez Wallen. He's a Trinidad and Tobago citizen from the Faizabad district. He's now living abroad. But we're talking with him, we choose to call it Honoring Arthur Sanderson. We had a discussion with Gilbert Tegard, my schoolmate, a couple of editions ago. We mentioned Arthur Sanderson, who he was a member of parliament for Faizabad under previous administration, and he died with a lot of promise, with a lot of things under his arm to do for the upliftment of the people in that part of the country. And Mr. Hernandez Wallen lives in Atlanta, in the Atlanta district in the United States South. And he's saying, before we came on the air, he was saying that Atlanta now is like the next Brooklyn, where you have a lot of West Indians dwelling. We're talking about that, what it means, but honoring Arthur Sanderson. Let's talk about why. Mr. Hernandez Wallen, good to have you on the program.
Well, it's great to be here. It's a great honor to be on your program. And I just want to say, I work closely with Mr. Sanderson through Dr. Phillips, and his vision for this area was absolutely fantastic. We wanted to raise the Southeast outside of what government wanted to do. And he wanted to raise, through Mr. Pomeroy, this great architect, the birds, the history of the area. We were going to showcase all the contributions that was made by the union at the time. We were going to raise a pavilion dedicated to the OWTU and the union movement, and specifically pay homage to Mr. Butler. We were also going to pay homage to the fauna and flora of Trinidad and Tobago, as well as birds. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Pomeroy was able, through his contacts, to gather a promise of in excess of a large, significant volume, in excess of millions of dollars, to create a pavilion for birds of Trinidad and Tobago. We were also going to showcase the oil field, in particular, the histrionics of the oil field, because as you know, the Arthur Sanderson Park is home on acreage formerly by the oil field work in the oil fields. So we're going to showcase that focus. Looking forward, if this project was to have come into provision today, it was going to be could have been an extension of the teaching section of the University of the West Indies, and I understand the Camp and Bay. So that would have been, it could have been today, it'd been a teaching part for that. And we also were focusing on agriculture because, as you know, in Faizabad, if you throw a piece of yam on the side of the road today, tomorrow you can pick a tractor trailer load of yam, and tomorrow pick another tractor trailer load. Because for some reason, the agricultural prowess, as I say, of the soil in Faizabad is as such, you plant anything, it will grow. So what we're looking to, what could have been done, it could have planted seeds for teaching. And as I understand now, they are going to have, again, a campus, and we'd like to have had an open campus for teaching advocates of the oil industry, we could have brought people, as I understand, people are coming in now from several Caribbean nations and close by to learn about oil exploration and those disciplines. So looking back and looking forward, I take great pride in to know that I was working with Arthur. We brought Mr. Pomeroy, big architect, we were here, and he was passionate about doing that. And I came back recently to visit, and I was inquiring, I'm still inquiring as to why it wasn't. So I haven't met with anybody yet, except Mr. Agad, to hear a little bit about it. But I am anxious to learn as to what's going to happen with that place if they want to do, because I really would like to learn more about that.
Yeah,
Trinidad, go ahead.
Yeah, so you, I mean, things are there, you know, I'm trying to define a phrase from, you know, to compare it with, but things are sort of in the storeroom waiting to be unlocked and to bring out still. There's still the same amount of, as a commitment to what you're trying to do?
Well, two things. The commitment is there, but we have to get all the people involved. You know, we have the heirs, the people that worked in it before. I haven't met any of them yet, but prior to my visit here, I was here 3 days ago, I was trying to get in contact with the Pomeroy group, because this is about 15 years ago. And I was supposed to get some updated information as to what was planned, what was happening. But once I get that information, I would then be able to present it to interested parties about that. But I believe that right now, in Trinidad and Tobago is poised on greatness, and the South in particular. I have, you know, several projects I'd like to see I'm involved in terms of housing and so forth. And I think the Arthur Sanderson Heritage Park is the place to start. So once I get that updated information from the Pomeroy group of architects, because it's been 15 years, and both Mr. Pomeroy has passed away, and so has Arthur, I want to see what interest I can get from the community in Trinidad as to what they would like to do. But I think it'll be a great addition to the area and to the Arthur Sanderson's legacy, because Mr. Arthur dedicated his life to this place. He really, really wanted to make something happen in Trinidad from his place with the oil field and from his park. I would like to see what we can do to take it forward.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that you're not alone in that feeling, with that kind of sense of commitment to doing something in his honor, and something that will redound to the benefit of the people in the current generation and in generations to come, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. Dr. Phillips was a very close friend to Arthur, and he's the one that introduced me to Arthur. And we still would like to see where we can go. I am going to try to get, like I said, the latest information, because there were plans that were drawn up that were never disclosed yet to the public, because it was a private matter and a private company. But I know I was up there, I did see the plans, and they're trying to see if they can get those to revive, to show, to see if there's more interest. But Mr. Arthur Sanderson and Mr. Dr. Phillip were very close, and I worked closely with both of them in seeing this happen. We worked mostly very privately and in secret, but there were a lot of people in Trinidad who were involved at the time to try to see it happen. We'd like to see it. We'd like to see it happen in the future. Definitely would. Yeah,
you said you all worked privately and in secret. Talk about that a little bit. That is why. I mean, you weren't planning. What did you call it?
Well, you know, when we did it, we were working very hard. We were trying to raise funding. It was a tremendous amount of money to do it, and we got very, very close. But since it didn't work out, you know, I didn't say much about it over the years, because it's about 15 years now. I didn't say much, but I was visiting here, and I talked to Dr. Phillips. Dr. Phillips, Tony. Now is the time we think we can do something about it. Let us give it a go. So I'm here. I came back. I talked to Dr. Phillips. I talked to Mr. Agard, a couple I reached out to the family, so we haven't talked to them yet, so we don't want to say much. But once I can reach out to them, talk to interested parties who would like to see this happen, I will dedicate my time and efforts to see Arthur Sanderson's dream come true. Because believe you me, what I saw then would make the Southwest Corridor the envy of Trinidad. As a footnote, Mr. Pomeroy, the late Mr. Pomeroy, who was one of the leading global architects, had a personal interest in seeing this thing come true. He went ahead and, as I said, raised a tremendous amount of money to see this park come true. I mean, through a Birdwatcher Society. So we are here, I'm here now trying to see what I can do. And when I ran into Dr. Phillips, I said, let's go again. So we are still trying to meet all the interested parties, the heirs to the place, if they, what they want to do with it. I haven't met none of them yet. I was introduced, I'm still trying to meet them. I reached out to them, but I haven't heard back from them yet. So once all interested parties are notified, we can then decide to do something. But I definitely feel we could do something at this moment in time. Because simply reason it for the Southeast Corridor, for the oil field, for a number of different things can happen. Not only as a teaching entity, let's say linked with the Debe campus in teaching people oil technology, bird watching, tourism, the sort of tourism that is legacy tourism, and not just transitional, meaning that you make a resort and tomorrow it's gone. Legacy means we can teach people things like even steelware music, tassa drumming, Indian weaving, a whole bunch of other stuff that Trinidad has to offer the world that is relevant today. One of the things that's relevant today is architecture, construction, architecture. So we can be a conduit in the area in terms of having what you call a hands-on off-campus facility, off-campus university, teaching from the Sanderson Heritage Park and from other places next door.
Yeah, but you said you want one imagines to further develop the relationship between yourselves, the people who have these aspirations for Faizabad, and the people who administrate at the Debe campus.
Yes, there are programs in motion that can do just that. Concrete, tangible things that can do on another discipline, on a construction discipline as well. That is something that would like to see done.
Yeah. So you're speaking in terms of what I'm getting, and what probably viewers were getting, the sense of enthusiasm that is alive and well and among people in Faizabad about Arthur Sanderson, who he was. What is the sense that he was an inspiring person and personality in himself, and that is why people, and I imagine there are other people from my own soundings, there are other people who feel pretty much the way you feel, but don't have, I would say, what it takes to move it from hopes and aspirations into things that you can see on the ground.
Well, like I said, I've spoken to one Mr. Agard, who was very, very close to Mr. Sanderson. But my contact with him was through Dr. Phillips, Professor Yui. I've known him for over 20 years. And I just came back and he said there was tremendous interest. So we're still exploring that interest, who to speak to, etc. But we do feel that it's going to add a tremendous boost to the Southwest Corridor.
All right, and so it is alive. It is live and alive. The sentiment that people have in that, at least in that part of the country, and one imagines there are people in other parts of the country who would have become familiar with Arthur Sanderson, and therefore, whatever their skill sets are, it may not be difficult to bring them together if a movement kicks off and it's going in the direction that you and your sort of nucleus wants it to go, correct?
Yes, yeah, that is absolutely correct. And I can quote a couple examples. For example, we have one Miss Colette Bonnet, who is into food security for the country and the region. There are things in there that can work in that program that couldn't previously was not thought of. Dr. Phillips has mentioned we can do it as an extension from the DB campus to have a teaching facility to do oil exploration and with respect to what the government or the people wants to do with teaching in disciplines in the oil industry. You see? So it is much more relevant today than it was 15 years ago, you know? And because now, so I'll give you one example. When I was down there 20 years ago, they were looking at doing a factory to do construction housing. And I was standing up at the port, this Point Lisa's port, and my business associate was talking about they were building I think it's an oil, I want to say an oil rig. I'm not too sure to determine what, let's say it's an oil rig.
Yes.
They were building one in Texas and one in Trinidad. And our folks in Texas was built and completed the project 2 weeks ahead of the people in Texas. We have tremendous talent here. We have some of the most innovative people on the planet. And I always tell people, you'll see the Trinidad, when oil runs out, you'll see the value of this country. We have a lot to offer. And I never gave up, I never lost hope. But after 15 years, I'm back. Dr. Phillips called me and said, Tony, let's see what we can do. He wants to do something to honor Arthur. But it's much, much more can be derived from there. The region. The region has so much, it's been neglected for years. They're focused on this part of the country, but we have talented people here, can do so much in terms of passing on knowledge. I like to see the oil refinery come back booming again, somehow. That's not my expertise, but I would imagine we can do a lot. But we have a tremendous heritage. And Arthur's vision, when he was with us, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Agard, Ms. Bernard, and his kids, his children, his daughters. I say, we reached out to them, we haven't gotten in touch with them yet, but we are talking. There is something to be done to revive that heritage that he was trying to preserve. It was very, very close to Arthur's heart. And I would like to see that come to life again, somehow.
All right.
But go ahead.
You say somehow, but you have an idea, and some of your colleagues with the same sort of aspirations, you have ideas as to how we could move, or the program, the aspirations could move from being aspirations into
practicality.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I was in contact, so give you the latest update. I was in contact with the architectural firm, Mr. Lee Harris Pomeroy's Architects. I spoke to a gentleman, Mr. Figueroa. I was there. I'm waiting on word from him because they're going back into the archives to see to bring up the plans, the up-to-date plans. Once I bring up this up-to-date plans, I will be in a position to present to interested parties in the area to say this is what was the vision for your area and go from there. But there was concrete, definitive plans well laid out with a lot of research to give you a sort of a little small sliver of a window.
Yeah.
Mr. Pomeroy's two daughters who produce help in assisting production of some of Ken Burns. Some people might know Ken Burns from PBS TV in the United States. Ken Burns, the gentleman, does documentary on the Civil War and American history. He's one of the most renowned people in that. His two daughters worked with these people, and they did a lot of research, which they only gave me a small amount. It wasn't privy to give out yet, on the history of the oil field of Trinidad and Tobago. Some things I was shocked to know that they discovered about Mr. Uriah Butler, the late Uriah Butler.
Yeah.
And they were a part of that exhibition, or the park was going to be a significant portion dedicated to the OWTU and the oil movement and all was taking place in Trinidad. So it was going to be like a museum, a theme park. It was much not just not a rides and games park.
So what do you advocate, or what are you seeing as being the next steps if to keep the dream alive and to move it forward? What are those steps that have to be taken such that the thing doesn't wither and die, the hopes and aspirations don't wither and die?
All right. Number one, we're hoping, I'm awaiting word from the Pomeroy Group to see the architectural plans. Number two, I will coming to talk to Mr. Ager, Dr. Phillips, and other interested parties as this is the plan. I believe, okay, and this is my belief, that we have the wherewithal to do what we have to do. There's another entity that is into construction, could be all part of this program to make the Southwest a teaching hub, not just a tourist hub, but also a teaching hub. And that is where we can see, if the government so desired, they can turn around and help. We would welcome it. But once I get those prints, which I'm awaiting on from the Pomeroy Group, I can then show everybody what is it. And I think there's interest here at this moment in time to make this happen. Tremendous amount of interest to make it happen. I talked to a couple of people, but I'd rather speak when I have everything, in position. I'll come back on your program again, but the biggest thing wasn't just a park, but is a teaching entity linked to the universities, linked to industry, because one industry in particular, I can tell you, that is being fervently discussed now is construction, the construction entity of Trinidad and Tobago, with respect to housing, the technology and the transfer of technology is proposed to the government right now to do a teaching entity, and we'd like the teaching entity to be in the Southeast because of its proximity to the port, the Point Lisa's port. Because if we were to do construction of housing after hurricanes, build back better is one of the things that Dr. Phillips is passionate about, and we can all link all this together as part of the teaching entity and make it as well as part of the Bay campus. So think about it at a moment. The Arthur Anderson Park now can have a historic section of the oil field, teaching of the oil field, also a vision of teaching construction techniques. And right here in the south, there's a plant that we could build a plant close to the Point Lisa's area, which is close to there. That entity will be teaching that high technology level. And it's going to build high technology jobs to the area. Because, as I said before, the Sanderson Park is not a, Roman scandal party park. It's much more than that. It's a lot of historic, lot of schooling, but we want to focus on bringing high quality jobs. Focus on the oil and gas industry. Focus on housing and construction. Building an entity that actually build homes and be part of the university. So that's how the tying is going. Part of the university, public, private sector. We have those plans. If allowed to go forward, that could be done in short order. But housing part is ready to go. Teaching on 3 particular disciplines to marry agriculture with sales and marketing and entities. That would entail construction of the design construction of places to sell in the agricultural products directly. So one example, we have 3 shelf-ready projects that can go. That'll teach how to transfer some of your local dasheen, yam, tanya, etc., chicken the industry, marry all those together, and make it uniquely Trinidad. Trinidad has some tremendous cooks and recipes that can go into stuff that can rival the KFCs and or you know, stuff like that. And in terms of beverage production, to showcase those in a unique way. So the young people of today, by training, part of this training program in the open, sort of quote unquote open campus, can teach people how to design certain pieces of equipment to work in restaurants that are going to be this way. This is from Trinidad, so the people learn to design the machinery that work in it. They will design the recipes that go into it, and I can guarantee you it will rival anything you have in Trinidad and Tobago in terms of Starbucks, in terms of Popeyes, in terms of Royal Castle. We can be the top program, top of the line. Trinidad can do it. We have the ability to do it. I'd like to see that division. We can rival that. It will create high-skilled jobs because we can export from the school that will teach construction and build houses in Trinidad. We can be building for the entire Caribbean.
So
we can export housing from the Caribbean, and that plan is ready.
All right.
That
So
particular plan is ready.
Is it realistic to imagine that this time a year from now, there will be things on the ground, if not up in the air, concerning what you're talking about there, the readiness for takeoff with some of what you're talking about?
At the moment, I can tell you, Miss Colette Burnett is on the ground in Trinidad, waiting to see this happen. As far as construction of a plan to do housing, that's on the table being discussed right now. We are hoping for some good results. We are also hoping that the campus will be, but whether or not the campus is up in there, the open campus arm of it can be conducted from the David campus or from the UE campus. But those two particular entities, in terms of food production, there are entities, there are technology we'd like to employ. And one of the things really that fascinates me is that the agricultural techniques that will be available for small lot production, the technology exists that in short order, you can have, let's say, half an acre, quarter of an acre, and be producing tremendous amount of products. That is going to be beneficial to the environment, not just, just a lot of chemicals involved, but the techniques are there to produce both for homestead construction and for export, because Trinidad as a country imports a tremendous amount of products from overseas. So let's take, for example, a cocoa pod. You sell a cocoa pod for $10 a pound or whatever, but it goes into Europe and it comes back to you as about $100. We need to change that.
Yeah.
We need to change that.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Anthony Hernandez. Well, and next time we're talking about seeing stuff from the ground to the air. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it. And to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, I'm here for you.
All right.
Thank you.
10 questions. We'll take a break. When we come back, David Mohammed, he says there's a means by which we must develop plans to escape the science of divide and rule. Stay with us.
you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn. WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 6861662 and start building your future.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, WESN Content Capital.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title, it's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
Welcome back to the program. With us now, Mr. David Muhammad, a leading figure in one of the Islamic organizations in the country. He says there's a need for us to address the question of what he calls the science of divide and rule. Good to have you, sir.
It's a pleasure to be on. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and looking forward to our discussion. It's been a while.
All right, so let's talk about that. The culture of divide and rule. That is something that we could say that it is alive. I'm not sure about being well, but it is alive and sort of broadly present in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, it's evident because this is a technique that has been constantly used against underprivileged communities to be able to extract out of them service to outside interests. I mean, the great Kwame Ture, in his book Black Power, spoke about a concept called dynamite in the ghetto, which was a reference to the potential that poor people have to participate in their own empowerment, but instead are used as tools in service to the empowerment of others. And in that book, Black Power by Kwame Ture, of course, national hero of Trinidad and Tobago, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael.
Yeah.
Chapter 1 in the book Black Power is entitled White Power. Chapter 2 is entitled Black Power. But why would chapter 1 in a book called Black Power be entitled White Power? And the reason for that is, as Kwame Ture says, there can be no black power unless there can be no white power unless you have black representatives of white interests among black people. And he made reference to the black politicians. And so this has been a very consistent and widespread pattern among, again, I use the term in this context, underprivileged communities.
And give us an example, give us some examples of what you see as the sort of the operations of the science of divide and rule.
Well, there are numerous examples. You can simply pick an era of time for this to be demonstrated. And it manifests itself in a 4-step process. So in stage 1 of how we are divided and ruled is that differences between us are identified. Stage 2 is when these differences are exaggerated and the relevance of these differences is amplified. Step 3 is that when these differences are made major issues of contention and the basis of our social interaction with one another. And then stage 4 is when an external person to the underprivileged community comes in and capitalizes on this newly manifested division, disharmony, and disunity. Now, these same issues of contention exist in other communities. However, in those other communities, those differences do not become the basis of their interaction, and other communities do not allow themselves to fall apart or fragment as a result of those differences, which is unlike how it is in the Black community, as an example. And I'll give you 4 contemporary examples in our modern social history.
Okay. And when you think you're talking about Trinidad and Tobago, or...
Right. So it all links back to Trinidad and Tobago, which is like a living, modern, contemporary example. But first, 4 examples, all on the continent of Africa, the first being apartheid South Africa. And humanity has been puzzled over how a minority 1 to 5% white population can so successfully control, govern, oppress, and exploit, and even mass incarcerate a 95% Black population. The only way that that was possible is if members of the Black population were divided and ruled. So you had figures like Nelson Mandela and Chief Buthelezi and Walter Sisulu, all persons who were on the front line of representing their peoples, but who had differences, and those differences were manifested in tribal conflicts by the provocation of outside forces. The second example is the Rwanda genocide. 500,000 of our people killed between the Hutus and the Tutsi tribes, both of whom were being manipulated by the Belgians since the days of King Leopold II in the early 1900s, all the way up to giving one tribe privileges over another, until it became a national conversation. After it became a national conversation, it became an open and public massacre, again, going back to the interests of the Belgians and their manipulation over the rubber industry in Rwanda. The third example is the Congo. Now, over the last few years or so, Congo has had one of the biggest humanitarian crises in the entire world, which again goes back to Belgium and the manipulation of and the division between different local groups, local tribes, who were given different levels of privilege by an invading administration that was able to establish themselves.
When I was growing up,
through
there was
complicity.
There was a calypso
and then
called...
the fourth example is the Angolan Civil War, which lasted from 1975 to 2002, which was a war that was fought by proxies. The Portuguese, even the Americans, and the Soviets. You had 3 European proxies on the outside of the war, giving weapons and support and technical assistance to groups that were in conflict on the inside of the war. No Europeans died in the Angolan Civil War, but Africans did. Now, all of these same methodologies are incorporated in modern societies such as Trinidad and Tobago, where you see this kind of tribalism rooted in politics, which creates a hostility, mistrust, anger, and division among the poorest of the poor people in our society. So when you look at our local political situation, for example, many of us have become ideologically crippled and incapable of working with or cooperating with another interest group that is part of an external political organization. So this sets up and creates barriers and obstacles within our community against our people cooperating with one another because of differences in politics, as well as religion and social class. And once these differences are maintained and sustained and even fueled, then that division remains in our communities.
I wanted to go back to what you talk about in Belgium, in the Congo, because when I was growing up, there was a calypso called Belgians Making Trouble in the Congo. And that was speaking to it then. That's 50 years ago.
Yeah, because that legacy has remained the same. And maybe it could be that Congo is one of the worst examples of them all, because at the Berlin Conference in 1884, when European powers came together with a large map of Africa and divided up each of the lands like a cake, literally cutting out the English Francophone nation, the French Francophone nations, the English Anglophone nations, and even Portugal and Belgium and even Germany at the time, the Netherlands, establishing interests in different groups. When it came to the Congo and what country the Congo went to, Congo was not just a country colonized by a European power. The Congo as a country was the property of one person, King Leopold II. And King Leopold II killed more Africans than Hitler killed Jews. And it was only when there was a global outcry somewhat of the magnitude and the extent of the genocide that he was committing that the country was ceded over to Belgium themselves. But that one man owning everything kind of legacy that Belgium had over the Congo through King Leopold established one of the most cruel and brutal systems of labor, even similar to Kenya with the Mau Mau at the time when Queen Elizabeth came into office. And interestingly, let me just throw in something right here, because 3 years ago, King Charles of England confessed that he is about to launch a commission of inquiry to determine the royal family's extent into them benefiting and profiting from the crimes against humanity in the African slave trade. That was April the 6th, 2023. April the 6th, 2026 has just passed. That was Monday. And so we cannot afford to have short memories on these things. We have to be mindful of what's happening in the conversation. And it's not ironic, or it is ironic, that around this same time, within the last week as well, that the United Nations voted to declare the enslavement of Africans as the worst crime against humanity in all the annals of history. Of course, with the exception of just those 3 countries that disagreed, which was the United States of America, which we can not be too surprised about based on who their current president is, Israel, again, based on the persistent slaughter of not just innocent civilians, but children in Palestine. But the third country was Argentina. But this is the time of the expiry date of the Commission of Inquiry by the royal family. But I'm sure part of their success in this is our short memories. And again, our focus on fighting against each other.
Let's stay with Trinidad and Tobago. You have a situation in which I think this is a unique kind of government. You have representation from across the ethnic board, you would say, probably more than it has been in our history.
Funny you should say that, Mr. Johnson, because referring back to the original text that I make reference to, Kwame Ture's writing on Black Power, he said one of the biggest levels of deception that we suffer from in our communities is that we think that Black visibility is Black power. Just because there is the presence of Black faces, it does not necessarily mean that there is the representation of Black interests. This is the reality across the board of our different political parties. But when it comes to the divide and rule in politics, you find in Trinidad there are numerous families of Chinese descent, such as the Gillets, of East Indian descent, such as the Mohammeds, of Syrian descent, of white, and such as the Montanos. You have so many families where members of those families comfortably sit in both the PNM and the UNC, and even enjoy positions of leadership, influence, and authority in both political organizations, but yet still they remain family. A legacy within the African community has been that once you are of a different political view, or even if you simply support or work with another political administration, you are labeled or branded as someone that cannot work with us. And so that borderline manifests itself in similar kinds of aggressive hostilities as the gang warfare, where persons who are located in diverse territories are destined to be sworn enemies by virtue of their geographical location. We have a political landscape where we conduct ourselves like that, and the only thing that it guarantees is that the poor stay poor and continue to get poorer, while the rich continue to get richer, because other communities do not suffer from the same kind of fragmentation and division and disunity as the African community suffers from when it comes to politics. They put family first, maybe business second, and then politics third. In our community, among those who are submerged in that culture, we put politics first, politics second, and politics third, even if it means the management of conflict within our own family and lack of support for our own businesses.
So that there's no positivity. Let's say if we look at the current government now, it's a mix of all kinds of ethnicities.
Yeah. But of course that is a positive step. I mean, no one could rightfully criticize or condemn that. And that's how every government would appear in a multicultural society. And this is not specifically pointing out or targeting them, but let me make a point that I've been making recently regarding employment. So I have been saying recently that there's a jobs crisis in Trinidad and Tobago. And this jobs crisis, I use the term jobs and not employment. This jobs crisis I see as being rooted in political administration of both of our major governments over the last 2 cycles. The last government created a kind of mass menial employment, where small, medium, and micro enterprise businesses of African people were discouraged and diminished. Small businesses closed down while big businesses further opened up and expanded. There was the denial of the African Bank, the Afri-Exim Bank in Trinidad and Tobago, while it's in almost every other Caribbean island. And also we had the deregistering of over 20,000 companies towards the end of 2024, going into 2025, many of them small businesses owned by African people who had to go and look for low-paying jobs. Now, what they did have, though, was these mass employment through temporary jobs in programs like the CPEP and the URP. So now that the new government comes in and takes away those jobs, many of those who were previously employed in those kinds of programs now find themselves finding it very difficult to make ends meet because they simply don't have employment. Now that was, to me, it was cold, it was callous, it was uncalculated, and it was insensitive. But in them taking away that, as terrible as that is, creating this jobs crisis, which is possibly contributing towards crime, the last government, in retrospect, must think that the next time they come in, that the jobs that they create or assist others in acquiring should not be configured in such a way that if there's a change in the government, there's loss of employment. There should have been more of the encouragement of the spirit of entrepreneurship, even on the small and micro enterprise level, so that regardless of who is in office, people can enjoy prosperity, which is how the reality is for other ethnic groups. Why should it be only the African community that suffers from job losses as a result of a change in government? The CPEP program, for example, has created a lot of entrepreneurs, yes, and a lot of these configurations of establishing a very lucrative and productive companies. But these companies should be detached from government so that we cannot be victimized by someone making a decision that we have to lose these jobs, which could be interpreted as political spite from one regime to another.
So
there must be more independence, self-sufficiency, and self-reliance economically among these foundational groups, and then our bitterness against each other when it comes to politics would not be so rabid.
So how else that could have been fixed if it was something that shouldn't have been allowed to prosper over a period of time? For example, how that issue could have been fixed, the massiveness of the people like us who formed CPEP and URP?
Well, again, many of these companies were not, they were still somewhat de facto government programs.
Yeah.
When you look at the East Indian community and the types of businesses that are established among them, it does not make a difference to their degree of prosperity when a government changes. What happens is the African community becomes disillusioned and upset temporarily with the governments that it upholds, votes against them, and then sees or experiences some types of arrangements that they did not foresee. Most other ethnic groups in this country who are rich or prosperous, even though African governments would have helped empower them, it is in the African community in particular that there has been more of a link or a connection to government or state-run initiatives and objectives financially and economically that we have to break free from. there are more than enough of us to be able to unite, pool our resources, settle our differences, open skills banks and think tanks, and circulate our dollars within a local Black economy that would still be powerful regardless of who is in office. Other ethnic groups are successful in doing this, and the way that they do this is by having our loyalty and consistent spending and support of their businesses, which we don't have among our own. And that template is really a solution to our problems, but part of poverty itself and the psychology of poverty is not so much lack of education or even unemployment, but the most common characteristic of poverty is immediate gratification as opposed to delayed or deferred gratification. And therefore, there has not been this culture of using financial resources as a solid, stable foundation for the following generations, in addition to just this one.
So how do you think we can sort of overcome that kind of division among ourselves? It doesn't appear that one group is taking advantage of a situation or has taken advantage of a situation in which you have the CPEP and the ERP being what they have been reduced to now.
But how it occurs?
How do we sort of surmount that? How do we rectify what it is that
Yes, which goes back to our initial area of focus, is us reestablishing some of those social cultures that empower a community. For example, we always use this common template reference whereby take the poorest part of the country, if 1,000 poor people were to grow $1,000 worth of food in 1 year, that would be $1 million in added food security. But that $1 million in added food security is also $1 million less that has to be spent or invested in national security. And that is just one simple example of the potential availability of the power of human resource in a community. We have this cliched example of someone who receives $1,000 in their hand and they take it to an electrician that they owed. The electrician takes it to a mechanic that they owed. The mechanic takes it to a plumber that they owed. The plumber takes it to a caterer that they owed. And the caterer takes it back to the first person who received it. That's $5,000 spent within a circle out of just $1,000 in cash. There's a science behind us being able to pool our resources, circulate our dollar among ourselves, and identify long-term empowerment initiatives that can lead to a domino effect of development of the kinds of interests that could empower us. But instead, we look for employment that is temporary today so that we could eat a meal later in the day and then think about tomorrow when we go to work the next day. There has to be some kind of long-term, long-range aim, goal, vision, and mission to fuel our objectives for some kind of intergenerational financial sustainability. These are simply ideas that combat modern-day social cultures. Poverty is not just a lack of money. Poverty is a culture of thinking. And as long as that culture becomes visible and evident, it is copied and emulated by upcoming generations who now don't even see the value in tertiary level education or opening a business or owning land. It's all about getting jobs today so that we can eat tomorrow. And that way of thinking is poisonous, but it is also how the slave was made to think when he was emancipated and had to face all of these laws, terms, and conditions to try to get him back on the land to continue to be a modern-day laborer in an environment where slavery was now illegal, but labor exploitation is legal. And we have been targeted to continue to fit that pattern.
Does it matter which government is in office, how we address that situation? Because there are a lot of people who see what is happening now, or what has happened with the current government as an attack on Afro-Trinidadians in a significant kind of way.
Well, the thing is, we have been independent as a nation for more than 6 decades. And we should have learned by now that our solution does not lie in electoral party politics. Let me make it clear, though, that I have many friends who I support within government administrations as individuals. But the system itself should not be one whereby people are latched onto in exchange for survival. When you look at the most successful people of African descent coming out of the Caribbean, you will notice a pattern that all of them would seem to have been at odds with government. Going back to the great C.L.R. James, who was put under house arrest by the government. Even George Padmore and Henry Sylvester Williams, who were prior to that era, but really experienced their greatness by being appreciated outside of Trinidad and Tobago. Kwame Ture, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, was banned from this country by government, but still is seen by many around the world as the greatest contributor to the international African diaspora of any Trinidadian. We could never imagine Marcus Garvey being banned from Jamaica. You can't even fathom that. That's such a ridiculous thought. But Kwame Ture was banned from Trinidad. You look at the business pioneering of the Dupreys, creating such an economic empire that was partially dismantled by government. We had a vice president of FIFA who was also an astute businessman, Jack Warner, who was seen as an enemy by government. We had the leader of the 1970 Black Power Revolution, McCandle Dagger, formerly known as Geddes Granger, a hero to many African people around the world, but seen as an adversary to government. And we could continue with a long list of African achievers who have found themselves targeted by or seen as enemies of government. This should be a message. But who does the government embrace? Who is it that relies on and is supported by government? Those who are particularly being sustained and upheld by minimum wage, menial employment jobs. And if my survival depends on me getting one of these jobs, then I am going to continue to support you so that you could support me. But when it comes to true economic empowerment, independence, and self-sufficiency, and being able to be in control of some kind of at least minor economic empire, that is when we are no longer friends. I looked at an interview with William Monroe, born in Grenada, but one of the most successful African businessmen in Trinidad and Tobago, talking for almost an entire hour about how his business was literally warred against. It was as if they were doing battle against him. And who was doing battle against him? The government. Clive Nunes and his early business investments. Government. You look at highly educated, prosperous, achieved and accomplished, distinguished citizens of African descent coming out of Trinidad and Tobago, and great businessmen of African descent coming out to Trinidad and Tobago. Many times, their major adversary has been the government. Now, what does that say about our relationship with state politics? It doesn't look good.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much. And this is inspiring for a lot of people. A lot of people might challenge some of what you're saying, but the science of divide and rule, you say that continues to be alive and well. David Mohammed, thank you very much.
And let me just say, we are having this lecture on Sunday at the Kwame Ture Center in depth on this topic. So the Kwame Ture Center, this Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. And again, the Kwame Ture Center stands as an example. We acquired 3/4 of an acre of land from the state, and with not even 1 single cent from any government, we were able to, with our own hands, build a center that is valued at almost $10 million by us uniting, settling our differences, even resolving some of the gang conflicts in the community, speaking to our people, and creating a free labor force that saw a much bigger objective than our minor differences. And so that Kwame Ture Center stands as a living example of what we can accomplish when we put aside our petty differences.
Thank you very much, sir. David
Thank you.
Mohammed. There's been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
WESN.
Are you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed,